If you're working as a health, fitness, or a wellness professional, then it's likely that if clients come to you dealing with dizzy spells or vertigo issues, they're probably going to be freaking out about it a little bit. And the reality is that vertigo and dizzy spells can be different things, but for some folks, the vertigo can just be a magnified version of what's creating those dizzy spells. And the underlying causes can sometimes be quite concerning. There can be issues with spinal cords or necks or heads or ears that can be creating these issues, and some of those problems can be quite problematic. But then a lot of the people seem to be dealing with underlying causes that may not be as concerning, but for the person experiencing the issue, it can be very concerning. They're probably kind of really freaking out and feeling like there must be something really wrong for the world and the room and everything to just be spinning like a blender. So in this video, I want to help you understand the most common underlying causes for these issues and steps you can help your clients take to turn this situation around. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So if you're using remedies with your clients for dizzy spells, you're going to understand that that can really be problematic because the underlying cause can really vary from person to person. So a remedy that might help one client improve their dizzy spells that's dealing with one cause of that dizzy spells, give that same remedy to somebody else, it can make them a whole lot worse if the underlying cause of their dizzy spells is a different issue. So we really want to learn to look at the client instead of the symptom that they're dealing with. So the first underlying cause that we want to understand for these issues is this BPPV, or benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. And basically this can be a situation where there's crystals in the ear that have moved to the wrong location. We have these crystals that are basically made out of calcium and such that can be in the ears, but when they move to the wrong place, it can really create a lot of problems. And so what people do is they do what's called this Epley maneuver, where they'll basically maneuver the client around, they move their head around to kind of help move the crystals to the right location and move them out of a place where they're creating all this trouble. And I've heard from a lot of clients that just thought that this was miraculous, like they just had everything improve almost instantly. And I'll put some links in the description below so you can dig into this and understand this a little bit more. And I'll also put a link to a video that I just found on YouTube. It's basically an animation that shows how these crystals can get in the wrong location and how this maneuver can really help move them out of that location. And you might want to learn how to do this, but you might also want to send your client to a practitioner who understands how to do this. I've had clients tell me that they learned how to do it for themselves so that they can just fix the issue for themselves when it happens. But you hear a lot about people saying you really want a professional to help you do this. So if this is not your jam, you can either learn how to do it or send them to a professional that understands this. But when they can fix these crystals in the wrong place thing, it can really be a big situation for them. Now, the most common underlying cause for dizzy spell type issues that we see with clients is low mineral levels in the system. So basically, minerals are required for a lot of functions in the body. And one of the things that the body does with minerals is it sends signals through those minerals from the body to the brain and from the brain back to the body. And when those minerals aren't there, the signals can get dropped off. They don't make it all the way. And that can create like a disorientation for a lot of people. And this can be the cause of these dizzy spells. So what you can do is you can just help your clients look at their body chemistry. They can just check their blood pressure at least 2 hours after a meal. You want them to look at it about 2 hours after a meal or longer, but not fasted first thing in the morning. It should be after a meal. And you want to see, is that systolic number, which is the top number, is that below 112? Is it lower than that? If it is, that can be a sign that there's not enough minerals in the system. Now, this is not diagnostic because there's other things that could be thickening up the blood and raising the blood pressure even when there aren't enough minerals in there. If somebody has high blood sugar, that can thicken it up. If somebody is not detoxing correctly, all that filth can thicken up the blood and raise the pressure needed to push it through the system. So they might look like they have great blood pressure, but it could be higher just because of all these things that are going wrong. Still, it can really give you an indication. If a client's blood pressure is like 98/60, well, that's a really strong sign that there's not enough minerals in the system. And we see a lot of clients with these issues that are dealing with low blood pressure problems. So the most common cause for this is digestive malfunctions. So they either are not making enough stomach acid, which is very common to see, or their bile has become too thick and sticky to flow correctly. And that's very common to see. But in either case, we really need both of those functions working. We need the acidic product leaving the stomach and meeting this alkaline bile that comes from the gallbladder. And when those collide, it creates like this sizzle that really helps us bust the food apart and get all the minerals and nutrients out of that food. So if a client has either of those issues malfunctioning, then they're going to have a hard time getting all the minerals out of the food, and that can really make those minerals go low. So to turn this around, we want to help them fix those digestive malfunctions so they can get the nutrients out of the food they're eating. They're eating the food anyways. We want them to get the nutrients and minerals out of that food. So if you need to understand how to do that a little bit better, my book Health Pro Results, chapters 3 and 4, kind of teach you how to walk through these situations with clients and help them figure out which aspects of digestion may not be working correctly and steps you can help them take to correct them. And the book is available on Amazon, but I'll put a link in the description below where you can get the whole thing totally for free. And that'll teach you to walk through that situation with your clients. And if you happen to be a consumer that just happened upon this video, I'll also put a link in the description below for my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, and chapters 3 and 4 of that book walk you through that same process. That book is just more for consumers, where the Health Pro Results book is really written for health professionals. But you'll be able to get either of those for free in the description below. Now, another issue could be that maybe somebody's peeing out too many minerals. Even if they're supplementing with minerals to try to raise their mineral levels, they could be peeing them out just as fast as they're coming in. And that's pretty common to see. And this can happen sometimes with people using like a ketogenic and a carnivore diet where the carbohydrates are very low, and that causes insulin to go very low, which can be very beneficial for a lot of things. That can be very helpful for a lot of clients to get their insulin low. But for some folks, when that insulin goes too low, it causes them to pee out more minerals. So if they already have low minerals and they're going to get that way down and they're peeing out even more minerals, it can cause a lot of trouble. Now, that doesn't mean that a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet are wrong or bad. We use those with a lot of our clients. You just want to be able to understand how to look at your client's body chemistry and see, are they set up to succeed on this type of diet, or are they going to be one of these people, oh, I failed on that, it made me feel horrible. Well, there's a reason it made you feel horrible. And if you can help clients fix those malfunctions, then they can succeed using those type of clients if it's appropriate for them, and that's what they want to do. But this is an issue that can cause them to pee out more minerals. And what's interesting is that hypoglycemia is another issue that's very common that we see with these dizzy and vertigo type issues. And you know, what goes on is that the person may be processing glucose a little bit too aggressively. It's almost like their insulin is like a bully. And when they eat these carbohydrates, the insulin just sweeps all this blood sugar out too quickly. And it creates like a sugar crash, and that sugar crashing can create these problems. So what's interesting is that when minerals go low, if blood sugar is high enough, it can buffer those low minerals and the body can still function correctly. And it's the same the other way. If blood sugar goes really low and it crashes, as long as minerals are high enough, it can buffer that and the person will feel and function okay. It's when the minerals and the sugar go low at the same time that we get a lot of problems like this and a lot of other health issues and symptoms that can come about. But what's interesting about that is that we see this hypoglycemia often with that, but with the hypoglycemia, a lot of times they only need to produce a very small amount of insulin to process that carbohydrates that they're consuming because the insulin is so effective. It's like overly effective. So they only need to make a little bit, and that keeps that insulin level low, and they might pee out more minerals. So you can see this person might have a variety of issues really magnifying what can create vertigo and dizzy spells. And they may be having dizzy spells one day because blood sugar is crashing and going too low, and they may have it another day because the minerals are too low. And we'll talk about another problem that can come about that could be another third version of that. But one thing you can look at with these clients is the diet choices that they're making. If they're dealing with hypoglycemic type issues, you might have to look at their diet. And one thing that you can look at with clients that are dealing with these type symptoms is you can look at their urine pH and see, is it higher than like 6.2 or 6.3? And if it is, that can be a sign that their insulin may be a little bit of a bully and it may be overly effective. And this is not diagnostic. High urine pH does not cause insulin to be more effective or overly effective or anything like that. This is just a correlation that we see a lot. We see the higher urine pH in people dealing with hypoglycemic type issues. So when we're looking at their diet, a lot of times they're just eating foods that the carbohydrates are too high, and they're creating too much of a spike and too much of a crash. So if you can reduce the carbohydrates that the client is bringing in, then it can help them function a little bit better and reduce some of these symptoms. Now maybe they need carbohydrates, but you can change these like rice and pasta and high carbohydrate foods into lower carb or like medium carb foods like butternut squash or Brussels sprouts or yams or sweet potatoes, things that have enough carbohydrates for them to function but not creating such a spike and a crash. Now another major and very common issue that can cause these dizzy spell issues is adrenal fatigue. And it's all the cool kids have adrenal fatigue nowadays. But what goes on is that the adrenals are in charge of helping that blood get to the right place. So if we lie down or we sit down or we're resting, blood can kind of pool to different parts of the body. But when we stand up, the adrenals are in charge of helping that blood get back up to the head or other places where it needs to go where gravity is not really being a friend at the moment. So adrenals are in charge of that. So if they get a little bit overworked and they're fatigued, they may not be able to do that job, and a person is going to experience these vertigo and dizzy spell type issues. But we don't really like to see people treating adrenals. This is very popular right now to treat adrenals with all these adrenal formulas. But we sort of view that like you're whipping a tired horse. They're tired and you're just trying to get them to work a little bit harder. What we like to see people do is fix the underlying cause in the body that's causing the body to call on the adrenals so much. Usually the client is dealing with some type of chronic infection or undiagnosed infection that's going on, and maybe a lot of the body's resources are going towards dealing with that infection. So now the body doesn't have enough resources to function correctly, and it calls on the adrenals to, hey, can you make some more of these hormone things and help us out a little bit? And then the adrenals get called on too long and too often and they get tired. Or maybe it's a problem like we talked about before where the client can't digest food correctly and can't get all the minerals and nutrients out of the food they're eating. So now the body doesn't have enough minerals and nutrients to run all the functions it needs to do, and it calls on the adrenals to help out. So if we can figure out what that is with the client and help them correct those malfunctions, then all of a sudden the adrenals will come back to working just fine because they're not trying to run the whole ship by themselves. And there's also a simple test that I can show you how to run with your clients to get an idea if they might be dealing with adrenal fatigue. But you can see that with each client, this is going to be different. You know, maybe it's that minerals went low, maybe it's an adrenal fatigue issue. Maybe the adrenal fatigue issue is there because the minerals went low. So now the person, maybe one day they're dizzy because the minerals are low, one day it's a hypoglycemic thing, and another day it's because the adrenals are too tired. Or some people are only dealing with one of these issues. It can really go a little bit crazy when you're looking at the most common symptoms that can create this. But if you can help the client look at their body chemistry and get an idea of what's going on, all of a sudden you have a place to start. If a client is dealing with any type of digestive symptoms at all, then that's a really strong sign that they need to look at correcting any digestive malfunctions to bring more minerals into the system. Now, if you want to understand that adrenal fatigue thing a little bit, and I'll show you a test that you can run simply just running their blood pressure at home, jump over right now and check out our video on helping clients fix adrenal fatigue, and that'll go over that simple test and some steps you can help clients take to improve that issue as well. I can't wait to hear about your results.